Hello, my name is Dr. Aidan Elliott and welcome to this video on Scrooge in Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. In the next few minutes I will analyse how Dickens presents Scrooge in this book and highlight some key quotes that you can use in essays and exams. At the beginning of the book, Scrooge's isolation from society is the focus. That's why he is described as Marley's sole executor, sole administrator, sole assigned, sole legatee, sole friend, sole mourner. The 6 uses of the adjective sole reinforce the idea of isolation. Also note that there are 6 nouns here, but no verbs. This technique helps to convey a lack of movement, emphasising the fact that he is inactive in his community. This sense of isolation is emphasised further in the metaphorical description of Scrooge's house, which is down a dark alley. And it reads, "It must have run there when it was a young house, playing at hide and seek with other houses, and have forgotten the way out again." Now, at one level, this is an example of personification, where his house takes on human characteristics. But we also find out later that when he was young, Scrooge, like his house, ran up a metaphorical alley, and now he's stuck in a dark and lonely place himself. Dickens also emphasises Scrooge's meanness at this point. Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Now, most of these verbs, as you can see, are in the form of present participles, words ending in ing. This tells us he's doing all of these things right now and they're ongoing. They also describe things done with the hands, to seize things. And Scrooge, as a name, has an onomatopoeic quality, which is where a word sounds like the thing it describes. And Scrooge sounds something like a mix of screw and gouge, and these are words that are associated with cheating people out of their money. After loneliness and meanness, a third dimension of Scrooge's character can be seen in the following quote: "Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire." Hard, flint and steel clearly conveys outer hardness, but the phrase generous fire adds something new, the idea of potential warmth. Now, this phrase refers to the way people would traditionally start fires in Victorian England, by striking a piece of hard flint against a piece of steel. And whilst these might be hard items, they can combine to create a fire which warms us. In contrast, Scrooge is just hard and flinty and doesn't generate any emotional warmth. And we learn that Scrooge's emotional coldness is so intense that it manifests itself physically. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shrivelled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue. The language here conveys his personality: stiff, austere, dry, without generosity. Well, whilst these are negative images, there is one other image that suggests there is something inside Scrooge worth redeeming. He's described as secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster. Now, at one level, this just repeats the idea that he's isolated with a hard, impenetrable shell. But there is also the connotation that oysters can contain pearls. So, this image suggests that Scrooge might have something valuable within him that can be redeemed, and that is his soul. Now, in stave 2, we get an insight into why Scrooge has become so cold, mean and isolated. We learn that when he was young, Scrooge was left on his own at school during the Christmas holidays. And we're also told that 2 books and their characters effectively become his companions. They're Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves and Robinson Crusoe. So, what's the significance of these books? Well, Ali Baba is a fictional character who discovers stolen treasure hidden in a cave, and then he keeps it for himself. Robinson Crusoe is shipwrecked on a remote island with just one person for company, Man Friday. So it's no coincidence that in later life Scrooge also hoards money and also has just one friend, Jacob Marley. It could be argued, in the absence of a caring father, he's taken these characters as a guide to living his own life. We know that Scrooge eventually changes. In fact, he's the only character in this story who undergoes change. But what hints does Dickens give us that a change is underway? Well, one of the first signs comes in stave 2 when Scrooge is presented with happy Christmas scenes from his youth. The ghost of Christmas past says, "Your lip is trembling. And what is that upon your cheek?" Scrooge tries to pretend that it's a pimple, but in reality it's a tear. It's the first sign that the emotionally frozen Scrooge is thawing. And after this the thawing accelerates. We hear then that he sobbed and that the sights and sounds of his past gave a freer passage to his tears. His inner iciness is now melting and turning back into water. Then in stave 3, the ghost of Christmas present shows Scrooge becoming aware that people can be happy even in the poorest of surroundings. There was nothing very cheerful in the climate or the town, and yet there was an air of cheerfulness abroad. This shows Scrooge that it is humans living together as a community that gives a place its richness, not the place itself. And when we take a look at the vocabulary used near to this quote, we notice words such as jovial, glee, laughing, heartily, radiant, glory, jolly, opulence, shining, fatness, benevolence. All of these words are designed to make Scrooge and us feel the warmth, love and enjoyment that is typical of the true spirit of Christmas. Now, after his various experience with the three ghosts, which I'm not going to reprise here, we get an audible indication of the deep transformation that Scrooge has undergone since the beginning of the story. He laughs, and it was a splendid laugh, a most illustrious laugh, the father of a long, long line of brilliant laughs. But why are the laughs splendid, illustrious and brilliant? All of these words relate to the idea of a light shining, which of course was a facet of the ghost of Christmas past. Brilliant means shining or glowing with light. Splendid implies outshining what is normal. And illustrious means notable or brilliantly outstanding. So now Scrooge's laughs light up his life and the lives of those around him. Now, at the beginning of this video I mentioned there are 6 repetitions for the word soul at the start of A Christmas Carol, you might remember, showing Scrooge's isolation. And at the end of the book we have 6 repetitions of another word. The chuckle with which he said this, and the chuckle with which he paid for the turkey, and the chuckle with which he paid for the cab, and the chuckle with which he recompensed the boy were only to be exceeded by the chuckle with which he sat down breathless in his chair and chuckled till he cried. The verb to chuckle means to laugh gently, inwardly and warmly. And he chuckles now when he pays out his money, the polar opposite of how he was at the start of the story. Scrooge has now changed. So in summary, we can see how Dickens here uses language to illustrate the changes in Scrooge's character, from frozen, hard and mean to warm, gentle and generous. So do look out for some of these features as you read this book, and I hope that this video has given you some useful insights that will help you to get greater enjoyment from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Give a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video and subscribe now so that you never miss any of my future posts.